All right, guys. You guys can see my screen. Those of you guys at home.
Yes.
No, I'm
All
driving,
right.
so I'll just listen to it. Thank you.
Okay. Feel free to listen in. This is recorded as well. So it will show up on our YouTube channel probably by tomorrow if you guys want to go back and watch this stuff. But what prompted me to do this training today, guys, is because as you guys see, weather's nice, right? We're springtime. This is when sellers tend to come out, right? This is the selling season right now. We're getting more seller opportunities coming in. Some of you guys are doing your own prospecting with sellers. Some of you guys are getting leads from the team as well, right? And going on seller appointments. So I want to be able to equip you guys with more knowledge, more tools, more value that you can bring to the table when you are out there having those conversations, which in turn is going to lead to more business and more win-win scenarios for the seller and for you as well, right? So raise your hand if you want to make more money. All right, good. So we're in the right room. Everyone raise their hand. All right. Amaya said he's fine. I'm good right now. Yeah, all right. So everybody raised their hand. So we're in the right room. Okay, all right. So I'll make sure we're in the right room, all right? We got that out the way. All right. Raise your hand if you are open-minded and open-minded enough to try to look at different angles on how you can service sellers and how you can provide more opportunity and thus make more money in that process, right? We're in the right room. Does that make sense? All right, cool. Just want to make sure. All right, so identifying seller opportunities is the name of today's training. The things to look for when talking to sellers, which can improve your value proposition and create a win-win, right? So the more value that we're able to bring, the more that we're going to be able to stand out, the more that we're going to be able to win over more business. That's the goal of this training today, right? And so, too fast. Okay, so here's the challenge I see, right? With most agents when they're talking to sellers, right? Is number one is most agents are short-term minded when they meet with the seller, meaning that they go meet with the seller and their only goal is to get a listing. That's it, right? It's like tunnel vision. I'm going to go meet with the seller. I'm going to do my listing presentation. I'm just trying to close this deal and get a listing and try to list this property and sell it, right? That's the challenge with most agents that most agents face. And so most agents are not educated on all the different ways they can help a seller. So they don't ask the right questions, because if they don't have the other knowledge, if they don't know like, hey, there's these other things I can do or these other ways that I can help the seller, then they're not even going to go down that road. They're just sticking to like, let me get a listing, right? And so they end up leaving opportunity on the table. And then they also end up sounding like every other realtor. Imagine like if most realtors are doing this, when you go meet with the seller and every realtor is just trying to tell them why they're the best listing agent and why you got to list with me and my marketing and my staging and all that, then do you sound any different? No. And so when everybody sounds the same, what is the seller forced to do? What are they looking for when they're going to choose a listing agent if everybody sounds the same?
Price.
Price, likability, personality, that does play a role. But let's say like if I meet with you, Mark, like I'm the seller, I meet with you, I like you, you're cool, solid listing presentation, solid track record. Then I meet with Adrian, he's cool too, I like him too, solid track record, right? Maybe he's at a comparable company or comparable team. What's it going to come down to at the end of the day? Price, commission, right? And so when we're all speaking the same language and we're all offering the same thing and we're all consulting sellers in the same way, then it comes down to price. And then you become a commodity. Thanks, John. You took the words out of my mouth, right? And when it's a commodity, it's what's called the race to the bottom. Who is cheaper? And when there's a race to the bottom, nobody wins, right? You don't win, right? Because then it's like, whoa, he said he'll do it for 3%. Well, I'll do it for 2.5%. Well, this guy said he'll do it for 2%. This guy said he'll do it for 1%, right? You know, and that's what a lot of sellers do, right? They think all agents are created equal. So these are some ways that we're going to differentiate ourselves, right? And because of this, right, their value proposition is limited that the agent brings to the table, since they're trying to fit every seller in the same box, and they're trying to also speak the same way and present the same way, right? And so agents who present multiple options to the seller and have an end-to-end type of service are going to be looked at different. How do we differentiate ourselves, right? And that's going to lead to more long-term success. So you guys follow how all that stuff connects, right? Okay. So a couple things we're going to take a look at today is you got to ask the right questions right off the bat, right? That's the most important thing. If you're not asking the right questions when you're meeting with the seller, you're not going to uncover what may be important to them and how you can differentiate yourself, right? And one thing I wrote right here is that not all sellers want the same thing. We think all sellers want the same thing. Like we think in our minds, all sellers want top dollar, right? I think top dollar or a good return on investment or getting a good profit, that's kind of a given, right? But how you get there can be different, right? Not all sellers want to get there the same way. And here's a perfect example. Rob and Chris have a seller right now that they're a listing that they signed, and then the seller is thinking about canceling now because the seller didn't want to disrupt their life and stage the property and clean it up. They have a small child, all these different things, right? They listed it with somebody else before. They didn't do really any effort of marketing the property, so they didn't get the price that they wanted. And so now Rob came in and said, hey, if we're going to try to get the price you want, we have to stage it. We have to do all these things. And the seller doesn't want to do it, right? So not all sellers are going to be willing to do the same thing to get to the goal that they want to get to, right? That's the point I'm trying to make, right? Some sellers like want every penny from that sale. Some sellers just want to get it over with and get it done quickly and smoothly, right? So that's the thing that you have to understand. So when you're approaching these sellers, you need to ask the question, right? And that leads to the next question is, what's more important to you? Is it convenience or is it profit, right? And if you're not asking that question in your listing presentation, and if you guys have downloaded our newest listing presentation, I put that question in there, right, to prompt you guys, then you're going to like miss out on having this whole conversation of what the different options are. Because naturally, you're just going to kind of go through, well, this is how I can get you top dollar, right? You start only speaking that language because you never even asked, like, is convenience or profit, more important to you, right? So you got to ask those questions when you're meeting with these sellers so you can truly understand how you can navigate them down this road, right? Stop me and ask questions, guys, if you guys have questions. Yes. Both?
Yeah.
Then that's the part where we got to educate them on what it takes to do both, right? Because sometimes both can be a little bit tricky. They can be achieved. Sometimes you can get top dollar and make it easy, right? But oftentimes one comes with more effort than the other.
And I think once you ask that question, when it comes down to convenience, that's going to look different for a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's where you're going to have to tailor it, where the convenience comes in. Right. And so I think but that's a great question, Adrian, because that's what I would say.
Yeah.
If I'm a consumer, I'd say I want both.
Yeah.
I want both. Right. But then Enrique's follow-up question, okay, well, I don't want to steal.
Yeah. What does convenient look like to you? Right. This is my job to now educate you, and then you have to determine what's convenient and what's not convenient to you, right? But the whole point I want you guys to take away is we have to ask this question.
Yeah.
This has to be part of your dialogue, right?
And Enrique, we ask these questions so that we know what to focus on, right? Because I believe every time we go into it, we all will have the same, like, we're real estate agents. So we're thinking that it's top dollar, top dollar, top dollar. We don't know their circumstance. We don't know their scenario. So then what Enrique is saying right now, immediately we have to ask it. So then now we can tailor our presentation towards what they're looking for, not top dollar. Hey, you know what? I need to move at this time because I need to be with my daughter, or I'm retiring. I need to sell by this time because I already have a property that's built and I need to start making a mortgage payment over there. So then now Enrique knows where to focus his energy when he presents this listing presentation.
Yeah. And now I can start speaking in a way that's going to be more valuable to that seller, right? But if you're just going in there with like, here's my presentation, boom, 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 and you're just going down the line without really uncovering what's important to them, you're going to have a huge miss there. And you're going to sound like every other pushy realtor who's just trying to close them on signing a listing, right? And that often doesn't lead to success, right? Okay. Good question though. Okay. So there's different ways to sell a home. That's the big thing that I want to educate you on, right? Where today I want you guys to learn that there are different ways to sell a home. And I want you guys to understand all the available options, right? Because the way that most of us think is put a sign in front of the house, put on the MLS, host an open house, blah, 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 do that same traditional way, right? That's the way most 99% of realtors are doing it, right? But that's not the only way to get a home sold. In fact, there are a lot of sales that happen that are off market, that are sold to cash buyers, that are double ended. There's just all kinds of different ways that homes are sold that are not just the traditional way, right? And so it goes back to now differentiating yourself and understanding all the options and understanding how you can piece together those options and present those to the seller, right? Because everybody wants options. Would you guys agree? Right? That's why when you go to McDonald's, there's a lot of stuff on the menu. It's not just one hamburger, right? There's different hamburgers, right? Raise your hand if you like onions on your sandwich. I don't, right? I like onion in other stuff, but I don't like onion on my sandwich. I don't know why, right? But there's an option for no onions and onions, right? Like it's people want options, right? And so you just need to understand that, right? Naturally, people want options. So when you give them options, they're going to look at you as someone who has more to provide for them, right? Give them options. Okay. So one big thing is selling on market versus off market. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that that's an option, right? You can sell a property on market, which is the traditional way that we just said, but you can also sell a property off market. And there could be a lot of variations of what off market looks like, right? This is the class right now. You're in the right class. You're in the right class. So yeah, sell us out off market, right? There are pros and cons to selling on market versus off market, but for some people, off market is an easier way to sell, right? It goes back to convenience versus profit. Can you sell easier off market? Maybe you don't have to have open houses. Like if you already have the buyer and stuff like that, that can work. But are you going to sacrifice profit? Sometimes you don't. Depends on the property, right? Like if it's in a hot area, like someone's going to pay top dollar no matter what, whether it's on market or off market.
And real quick, Enrique, I mean, I know I have a handful of agents in here that have recently led on listed appointments. Have any of the sellers said, "Hey, I may want to sell off market"? And right? I mean, I just want to make sure you guys understand this is realistic going on right now, right? So that's why I love that Enrique is saying this, because I've talked to some of these agents that are going to listing appointments, and they are saying, "Hey, I have a renter in here. You know what? If you could sell it off market, I will go ahead and," right, Enrique?
Yeah.
So this is real life stuff that's happening, guys. So it's important that you understand that you have different type of clientele.
Yeah. Question. Go ahead.
Client asked us like this time. This client has asked me, "Hey, the rental is in. Like, what suggestion will you give me? But suppose we do the off market in the rental contract, like a month of like month-on-month basis. Like, how would you want me to execute that lease contract? Because I want you to do this off market.
Yeah.
It should be like easy to get out of the contract."
So I'm a little confused on your question. So if they have a tenant in the property, is your question, right? They want to sell it with the tenant in there, but sell it off market. Okay.
They say that we don't want to, necessarily disturb the tenants. Like, if they know that they're going to vacate it now, we don't know that our property is going to get sold or not.
Got it. So that's the thing is, I think that's the part where you got to educate them is just because you're going to sell a property doesn't mean the tenant's going to automatically move out, right? In fact, you have to honor the lease. If there's a lease agreement in place, if it's a long-term lease agreement in place, you have to honor the lease or maybe buy out the tenant or work something out with them, right? But the law is going to say you have to, keep honoring the lease unless you guys agree to something else. But I hear that a lot of times, right? I've heard that a lot of times. Well, if I tell the tenant I'm selling, they're going to move out all of a sudden. How many people just want to pick up and move out of their house? That's a misconception.
Yeah.
And so I would just say, hey, but sometimes that's just logic, right? Like that's their automatic logic. Like if I tell a tenant I'm selling, like tomorrow they're out and then I stop getting rent. Like that's not true, right? It really just depends. Some tenants actually want more time, right? Because it's gonna disrupt their life to pack up, move, such that they got kids and all that. So they may want to be in the property longer. They may want to see if they can stay and continue to rent the property if the new buyer will let them rent. So this is the part where you now need to educate the seller that, hey, that is not necessarily true. In fact, I don't really see that often, right? But we do need to alert the tenant, and we do need to let them know what your plans are so that they can cooperate with the sale. And we do need to see what their plans are. Maybe they were already planning to move out, right? Maybe like they want to stay. Like those are all things that you have to navigate, and you have to have the conversation, right? And so what you want to do is, the biggest thing you can do in that situation is reassure the seller, hey, don't worry. That's why you're hiring me. I'm going to help you figure all this out. If you need me to reach out to the tenant, I'll gladly reach out to the tenant with you, right? Or we can set a meeting with the tenant. We can both go to the property and talk to the tenant. So now what are you doing, right? Now, how do you look to that seller? More valuable or less valuable? More, right? And so that's where it's just educating them on the process, letting them know, hey, there's on market versus off market. What are the pros and cons, right? And see what makes the most sense for them. So, yeah.
How does it make it convenient? Because we still have to show the homes, still the tenant has to make time, or the sellers have to make time for us, right? What type of convenience are we talking about?
Open house. Well, not necessarily. You can be off market and have an open house. It's a perceived convenience, right? To be honest, right? Because if you're selling your house off market or on market and someone wants to see it, you got to let them in to see it, right? It's just, are you not putting the sign in front of the house, and are you not putting it on all the public websites? That's really what it is, right?
Right. So it's only like accompanied with the agent because of its off market. Who can have access to MLS? They can only just book an appointment and show them.
Yeah, you can put it on the MLS as off market, right? As members only show status. And now only the agents will see it, but it won't go on Zillow or Redfin or any of those other websites. So it's only internally to all the agents in our area. So they'll bring a buyer if they have someone, but you don't have a bunch of strangers driving by your house because they saw it on Zillow, right? And so it's a little bit of perceived convenience, right? At the end of the day, if you're going to need to show it at some point, right? But you could be strategic about that. And that's, again, where you got to educate the client. Hey, do you want more exposure? Would you rather have everybody know about it so we can potentially bring in more buyers? Or do you only want the agents to know about it and just rely on them bringing the buyer? Or do you want to rely on Zillow, which has a lot more reach than any agent, right? Because millions of people visit their site, you know, and get it exposed, maximum exposure. Depends. Some people are getting divorced and they don't want their neighbors to know they're selling, right? Sometimes there's a death in the family. Sometimes there's things that happen where they prefer to do it off market, right?
I mean, it's just, I think at that point, you just got to get really creative, right? And really think of, you know, you can go in and let the seller, or you can let the tenants know, like, hey, listen, for this weekend, we're going to do a mega open house, right? And you can just make it convenient. Maybe you got to incentivize those tenants to leave the property that Saturday, right? And you're gonna do a marketing campaign for that Saturday from 9 to 4. This is the only open house. Is the time you're gonna get access to this property, right? So I think it's just, I think the biggest thing in that situation with the tenant is just having the conversation with them and just letting them know, and then seeing how you can work it out with them and letting them know that it's going to be okay for them as well.
Yep. Absolutely. Good questions, guys. Keep them coming. All right. Here's another option. Sell as is versus sell fixed up, right? Every situation's different. Some people do not want to deal with repairs to their home. Some people want to just, the way it is the way it's sold. It's as is, right? Or some people are like, no, I understand the value of fixing my property up and getting it market ready so that I can achieve a higher sales price, right? Some people already have nice houses where they can sell it as is, right? So as is doesn't necessarily mean the house is in good condition or bad condition. It just means you're not really doing any sort of improvements or preparation to the property, right? And so it's your job to say, hey, these are two different options, sell as is versus us put some effort into prepping the home for sale. And this is what you can expect in the sales price range for homes that are as is versus homes that have been, prepped and staged and marketed, right?
Enrique, how do you ask that question to a seller? It's gonna be like, just really quick. How do you ask Mark? Mark's a seller. How do you ask him if he wants to sell as is or fixed up?
So it started with the first question, right? Hey, what's more important to you, is it convenience or profit, right? And so if Mark said, hey, It's convenience, right? I don't really want to do much. I just want to get it sold. I don't want to have to really lift a finger or have a bunch of people running in and out of my house, right? I'll say, great, right? We can do it that way, right? And there's a couple different ways. Is we can just sell it the way it is, right? Where we just focus on marketing the property in the exact condition that it's in right now. Or we can put a little bit more effort into preparing the home, and I can bring my contractor out here and make some recommendations for you of things that we can do to enhance the value of the property, which will ultimately lead to better marketing and to a higher sales price. Now, Mark, which one is more important to you? Now that you know that, right? Would you rather just leave it as is and maybe sacrifice a little bit on the profit? Or would you rather put a little bit of effort into the property and us try to achieve maximum sales price in your neighborhood, right? So as you can see, it's not up to me, it's up to Mark, but I'm the consultant. I'm the one giving them the different options and explaining them to him so Mark can now make the educated decision, right?
We're not assuming.
I'm not assuming like, hey, it has to be this one way, right? And some agents come in there just like, hey, we're going to fix it. We're going to stage it. We're going to do all that. And you're going to miss some people, right? Versus just consulting them, letting them come to the realization, hey, you're right. Hey, based off the comps, I don't want to sacrifice $100,000 on the sale of my house, right? I'd rather make that $100,000, put a little bit of effort and make $100,000 more. It's totally up to you, Mark. I'm here to do it either way. I can help you either way.
Because we've seen it the other way where we've gone in and telling people what they need to do, and then they may choose a different agent because that agent's saying, hey, you don't need to do all that.
Yeah.
So you can shoot yourself in the foot by trying to make the most beautiful home. Where this guy's like, I have a little baby. I don't want construction. I don't want this going on right now. I can't handle this. So that's why it's extremely important to ask that first question. What Enrique said, do you want, top dollar convenience or, sell as is, fixed up? Don't assume, right? I think that's a big takeaway for me is just don't assume, even though you guys are expert real estate agents, you got to see it from the lens of the client, not from your lens.
Yeah. Do you have something to add?
No, that was it. Don't assume, because I met with a seller and I was suggesting a nice paint job because her room was like a dark blue. The whole room, it was a big room with high ceilings, but it was a dark blue.
Yeah.
But her thing was like, I don't care. I don't want to deal with it. I don't care. Whoever's going to buy my home is going to buy it with a dark blue room.
Yeah.
So that's like where you have to not assume and listen to their reasoning and show them what the benefit of not leaving it the dark blue would be. More, how do you say it? More attractive to more public versus less. But at the end of the day, it's what they want.
It's what they want, right?
Everybody like orange.
Then you can say, hey, well, if we're going to do it as is, my suggested list price would be this based off the comps, right? If we were to do these other things, this would be my suggested list price, right? It's totally up to you. I'm here to service you either way, right? Okay, that's good. Let's move forward. Okay, here's another one right here. Sell to a retail buyer versus an investor or developer, right? So do we understand the difference between a retail buyer and an investor type of buyer, right? That's important for you guys to understand. We can sell, and you can do a combination of any of these, right? Like you can sell off market to your buyer that you got from Zillow Flex, which is a retail buyer, right? And you could double end the deal. And so that's the thing where you got to explain that to the client, right? Like, hey, there's different ways to sell your home as well. We have retail buyers out there, which are your regular buyers, that first-time buyers, who are moving into this home to live there. And then we also have investor type of buyers and developer type of buyers who are in there to buy the property and, do some sort of, renovation to the property and sell it for more down the line, right? And so it really depends on what you want to do. There are pros and cons to them, right? Goes back to convenience versus profit. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is just because it's a developer and investor buying it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to make less for the home. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, right? I'll give you a scenario with the developer. Me and Maudi have a deal we're working on right now in Cupertino, where it's a 14,000 square foot lot, right? And it's a lot with a small house, right? And so if we were just to put that house on the market to a retail buyer, someone's probably going to pay 2.5 for that place. It's a 1,100 square foot home. But a developer will probably pay $3 million for that home, because what they're going to do is they're going to knock that home down. They're going to subdivide the lot into 2 lots, and then they're going to build 3,000 square foot homes on them, right? And so selling to the actual developer who knows what to do with the land and how to create future value, that developer will probably pay more versus if I were just to sell it to a retail buyer, right? And so it could be $500,000 more or $300,000 more, depending on how the numbers play out, right? So it's just educating the client. Hey, there are retail buyers out there, which we, interact with on a daily basis. We're part of Zillow. We get all these buyers coming. They're searching on our websites and stuff like that. We have, certain buyers that we're already working with that are interested in properties like yours. We also have a whole book of investors that we work with, right? Internally in our office and externally from our office as well. And so the key is, what's going to be the best scenario for that seller, and what's the opportunity that you can create there as well, right? And so it's just knowing that those options are out there and just educating the seller that these are different options you have, right? So once again, it goes back to, wow, this listing agent is talking about these things that I haven't heard any other listing agent talk about, which now puts you in a different, give a different perceived value, right? You're giving more value to this seller.
And I want to add that Zillow is doing this right now. If you go onto Zillow sites, it's make me a cash offer. So Zillow is receiving these leads, and they're providing a cash offer. And if they want to explore the option of getting top dollar, they're sending that lead to people like our team, right? So Zillow's already kind of illustrating this example here. And what I really want to emphasize what Enrique is saying right now is this is how you're different from the next agent, is by providing this. Even though we know we have it, it's illustrating this value, because immediately you're starting to separate yourself from other agents that they may have the same product, but they're not, what do you say? Articulating the value.
Yeah, they're not articulating their value, right? And so just because, raise your hand if you know an investor, if you've heard of an investor or an investor's reached out to you looking for properties, right? Everybody knows investors, right? Or everyone's gotten a text blast from an investor, hey, I'm looking for flips, right? But the difference is, are you articulating that on your presentation? Are you even discussing that and bringing that up, that you do have these, right? So there's a difference between, oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, but are you explaining that? And the people who can explain it and articulate that stuff are going to be perceived higher, right? Versus the people who just are know-it-alls, but they're not really explaining it to people, right? They're just, right? Okay, so next question right here. Can you be the investor? Can you? Yeah. Some people think, right? A lot of people, Aditya, you posted earlier, if you have any off markets, right? Was that for you to flip or for you to pass that to somebody else? Okay, so there you're right. That's a perfect example right there, right? Is Aditya earlier put in our chat group, hey, does anybody have any off markets that have flip potential? But his lens was, I can find this and I can go pass it to another investor, and that investor is going to flip the property, right? But why do we have to pass it to another investor? Why don't we become the investor? If that opportunity is there, why don't we figure out how to buy that property and how to flip that property ourselves, right? And us make the profit. And that's the thing that most agents aren't looking at, is, once again, it goes back to what I said earlier. They're one-track minded, is they're only looking at commissions on a deal, and they're sometimes giving these deals away to other investors, and that investor is making 5 times the amount that you're going to make in the commission, right? So what I'm trying to propose to you is, more than most people out there. You know how to identify these opportunities. You're the ones meeting with sellers. You're the ones walking properties. You're the ones seeing if they're fixers, if they're run down, if the seller needs to get it sold quickly, or if they want top dollar. Why not first put your investor hat on first, right? It should go in that order. Let me see if I can be the investor. Let me understand how to identify if it's a good deal, and see if I can come up, with the money or the resources. And so Jason and I, right, have flipped probably about 90 properties since 2010. And so you have an investor already in-house, and we still look for flips. We still look for deals. They're harder to find right now, right? Because especially around here, because the price points are a lot higher. But if you find a good deal, bring that to us, and let's see how we can partner with you so that you can become an active partner in that deal, and you can make part of the profit on the flip versus just going after the commission. right? Or you can make probably the commission, if there's a commission that's earned when we put the deal together, and you can relist it for us and you make the commission when we sell it. And maybe there's even a profit split as well, depending if it's if we make a good profit on the deal. So there's different ways that we can position ourselves. But I want you guys to start putting your investor hat on first, instead of just assuming I'm going to go give it to another investor, right? Giving it to another investor is the second part of it, right? It comes last, right? In a different order.
Yeah, and I just want to make a point where the hardest part is not finding an investor. Who has an investor? Raise your hand.
We already said that, right? Everyone raised their hand.
So the hardest part is not the investor. The hardest part is not the money. The hardest part is not the construction. What's the hardest part, guys?
Finding the property.
There you go.
Finding the deal.
If you guys are out in the field already finding the deal, why are we going to give up the hardest part, right? Because we have the money, we have construction, we have the investors. So finding the deal, that's what we're looking for.
And what most investors do, if you think about it, because I get hit up by investors all the time, is they just try to entice you with, hey, you can represent me and get the commission. And then when I sell it, you'll represent me and you'll double end that deal again, right? Because they already know that finding the deal is the hardest part. They're not telling you, hey, they're going to make $250,000 in profit, and then you're going to make maybe $30K on commission on the front end, and you're going to make another $20K on the back end, because they're not going to pay you a full commission most of the time, right? So maybe you earn a $50K gross commission, then you get a split on that, right? Versus if you were the investor and now maybe you partner with us and now you're getting half of the 250,000 profit, right? Or it's a 60-40 or whatever we work out, right? But you're making a lot more. You're making 3 times more, 5 times more by you being the investor, if we can make that deal work first, right? So never just give up a deal to an investor without first seeing how can we be the investor first, right? So if you find that deal, you bring it to us, we'll help you run the numbers, and we'll say, okay, this is a deal or it's not a deal. All right. Or like, hey, yeah, maybe we're not going to touch this one. Let's give this one to an investor, and then let's charge them a finder fee on top of the commission.
Yeah.
Or let's just charge them an additional commission, right? Where instead of paying us 3%, they're paying us 6% for finding this deal, right? Who would like to make 6% on a purchase versus 2.5%? Raise your hand. I want to make sure we're in the right room. Okay. Okay, so you be the investor first, right? How do you identify these opportunities, right? And so we touched a little bit on this already, but just to reiterate, you're looking for homes that are run down, right? Homes that are run down where we can fix the property up and increase the value, right? So if you go into a home, it's a hoarder home, or it's a home that somebody inherited, or maybe it's a divorce situation. The home is completely trashed. The seller says, hey, convenience is my preferred method. I just want to get this sold. You know, they understand they're going to get less if they could just get it off their hands. They need the cash quickly, stuff like that, right? Those are the things you're looking for.
Anything that's not complete, anything that can't get traditional financing where they need a cash offer, those are what you're looking for. They're missing a kitchen, missing a bathroom, or some of them where they started the remodel, maybe they ran out of money, they need to sell it right away. So those are some of the opportunities.
Yeah. Or it's like the small home, big lot type of deal, right? You know, the better the neighborhood, right, the more desirable people are going to want to go buy a brand new home in there, right? So we have developers as well, where we'll knock the home down, build a brand new home. Your Willow Glen neighborhoods, your Cambrian neighborhoods, your Palo Alto, Cupertino, those type of neighborhoods that are really, really desirable with really good schools. If you have a bigger lot and a small home on there, right, those are the ones that people are looking for, right? And so we can get them a pretty good offer on their home, and the developers are going to come and knock that thing down and build a brand new home on that. And then there's different ways we participate, whether it's the commission on that deal, whether we get a profit split, list it, relist it, right? All those different things that happen. I don't know if I wrote this down. The 70% ARV formula, right? So how do we know if something is a good flip? And this is an easy formula that you can use just to see if it's in the ballpark. It's not going to be exact, but if it's somewhere close, plus or minus, right, that could be a potential deal that you want to bring, right? If it's way, way off, then that might be more of a retail situation, more of a help the client get the most profit situation, right? And so 70% of ARV, who knows what ARV stands for? What is it?
After repair value.
After repair value. Good stuff. Some of you guys done your homework. So after repair value, you need to remember this phrase, ARV, especially when you're talking to investors or when you want to become an investor, you need to know how this stuff works. After repair value means what is that home worth once it's all fixed up, fully marketed, fully presentable, right? So you can run comps in a neighborhood and you can see what the highest comps are for that type of home, you know, similar square footage, but that's completely remodeled and fixed up and marketed well, right? So in a neighborhood, let's say the home is going for 1.5. Like if this home was completely fixed up, there's one that just sold for 1.5, turnkey, brand new, remodeled, staged. Now what you're going to do is you're just going to multiply that by 70%. So everyone take out their calculator. 1.5 million is the after repair value. Multiply that by 70%. Um, 1,050,000. Everybody got that number? 1,050,000, right? So if you're able to get the property in that range, or if you're looking at comps, and let's say the property is really beat up, and really beat up properties are going for around 1 million plus or minus 1,050,000, 1.1, right? There's going to be a plus or minus right there, right? It's not going to be exact. But if we fix that up, it can sell for 1.5. That right there could be a potential deal. That's something we want to look at. That's something we want to go check out. That's something we want to see if we can make it work with the seller, even if we got to budge a little bit, right? There's different ways that we can make that deal work. Sometimes we charge them a little less commission, right? To sweeten the numbers a bit.
Easy way to look at it, right?
But that's an easy way to look at it. What's the maximum value times 70%? So if you're seeing homes like that while you're talking to sellers, if you're seeing stuff like that posted online, right, in these chat groups and off-market groups and all that stuff, other wholesalers or other investors, those are ones you want to bring to our attention, right?
And let me ask you again. So what's the best way? Let's say, let's say Mark filed something like that. What would you want Mark to do to send? How would you want him to send that over to you? Full comps? What would?
Yeah. So the best way for him to do that is going to be just send us the property address and just give us a quick rundown of the situation, right?
Maybe send some comps of what it could sell for?
Yeah. Comps. Yeah. So what Mark can do is, let's say Mark finds a home that's kind of in that ballpark. He can send me a text or an email and say, hey, Enrique, I found this home. I talked to the seller recently. They're interested in seeing what a quick, convenient offer would look like. Comps are around 1.5. Here's a recent property that just sold. He can send me the Redfin link, right? And I can look at that. Here's one that just sold. This is the situation they're in, right? This is, you know, a picture of the property. If you get pictures or whatever, or just or if you know the general condition of it, right? Hey, it needs a new kitchen, new bathroom, stuff like that. And they want to sell it quickly because they're in this situation, you know, and I think we can get it somewhere in this ballpark. Like if he just sends me a quick little rundown like that, that's
email, right?
Quick email, quick text message. Text message is even quicker, right? I can jump on that, or Slack, even Slack, right? I can jump on that right away, crunch the numbers and say, okay, let's go out there and look at that property. And we can get you an offer on that property the same day. So we can write them an all cash offer that same day and present it to the seller and see if they want to go with that. And then we can discuss within that how we can work together on that deal, right? Some of you guys may have money to invest and you're like, hey, I'll put some money in, you know, if we're going to split the profits. Some of you guys are like, hey, I just want to earn the commission. That's cool too, right? Some of you guys know people that have money. Hey, I don't have the money, but my dad has the money and he's willing to put the money up if we can find a good deal. And then we work out how we're going to split the deal, right? What we have is we have the know-how of how to execute the deal. We have contractors, right? We've done a lot of these deals. We obviously have the real estate portion here, the marketing and all that. And so we can make the whole deal happen, right? So someone can find the deal and then someone needs to make that whole deal happen. And then there needs to be a money partner as well, right? We put our own money in. We have other partners that put money in, or you might put money in, or you might have a partner that puts money in. The money part is the easy. That's the easiest part to find. It's finding the deal that fits the box. That's the hardest part, right? Any questions? Okay.
So this 70% ARV, what are we targeting the profit like after our construction cost, hard money, whatever? How did we come up with this 70%?
I wouldn't get too, I think the engineer in you is trying to figure all those details, but I would say for right now, I'd rather you just know this. And then when you get a deal, we're going to sit down and I'm going to show you the numbers, right?
So at least you are saying like, at least it should be 70 or less. Even
Yeah.
to have a worth looking at it.
If it's not 70 or less, like it doesn't even make sense to look at it, right? If it's like 90%, right? Only in certain circumstances, right? Where maybe like, I don't even but even cosmetic, right? Like most, just because the cost of remodels and constructions around here.
That and also the resale, you gotta understand, not like Enrique said, not to go too deep into it, but you gotta understand when you resell it, you're gonna have to pay a commission, right? There's a lot of closing costs, there's a lot of holding costs, right?
Yeah.
Just using that 70% is just really simple. And I think case by case, bring it, and then we can start breaking it down. Just for this class and keep it really general.
I'll give you a little more because I know you're scratching, right? Is 30% profit margin, right? 10% is going to go to rehab, right? 10% is going to go to costs and 10% will be profit, roughly, right? Plus or minus. That's why I'm just keeping it easy, right? Rehab, remodeling the property, right? Renovations. Costs, holding costs, commission costs, property taxes, all those different things, staging, all the different things we got to do to get the property sold, right? If we're using a hard money loan or there's an investor that's putting up money, they're going to, charge some interest and fees. So that's why the 70% gives us that 30% margin roughly to cover rehab costs and walk away with a net profit of maybe 10%, right?
And it's give or take.
It's give or take, right?
Give or take.
Just so you know, right? So that's why the quick and easy is 70% times ARV, right? That just makes your job easier. Let us do the finer calculations and then we'll show it to you. All right. I already talked about the small home, big lot, right? So this is the opportunity you're looking for. For residential developers, we already know that, right? Like build a home on a big lot, right? Knock down the small home. But there's also commercial developers that we work with as well that are looking for like, let's say like this strip, like this plaza right here. This is a perfect example. If this plaza was like old and run down, right? And it's a really small plaza like this, what they would do is they would knock all this down and they would build a bunch of townhomes here, right? So old commercial plazas that are small little strips, and you've seen them before. They're like in neighborhoods like that are nice, like Sunnyvale or somewhere. They've been there for a long time. You could tell they're like not really managed well. They're all beat up. Has a liquor store right here, a dry cleaner, and like something else. Massage parlor, I don't know. Yeah, massage or whatever. Get your eyebrows done. I don't know, right? They knock those down. They build 12 townhouses, right? That if you see an opportunity like that, bring that opportunity to us. We have a developer that does that, right? And these are like bigger deals too, right? Because they're going to pay $5 million for that whole place, and then they're going to sell each unit for $2 million times 12, right? We earn commission on every single one. So like that could be a big deal. They're harder to find, but they're out there, right? So look for those. Okay. Financial services partners, other ways we can help sellers and create more value. I think Ariocha is on the line. That's why I had him jump on. You guys have met him and Anita that came in. And so maybe he can chime in on some of this, but what we need to understand, guys, is there's also other ways that we're going to bring more value to the table when we're talking to sellers by partnering with, with financial services companies. Jason and I are both licensed now in the life insurance side of it. And so we are now affiliated with Ariocha and Anita at this other company because of situations like this, right? There's situations where there are sellers that we can help in other ways. That's not just real estate commission, but what are they going to do when they sell the property, right? Someone's going to sell their property. They're walking away with $1 million. What are they doing with the $1 million, right? Can they put that in some sort of investment vehicle that's going to work for them? And then we get paid for referring that over, right? Ariocha, can you chime in? Maybe just a little bit on what to look for when we're talking to sellers and how to identify these situations?
Yeah, so it's having the conversations with your guy. You can hear me, right, Enrique?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. So it's having conversations and trying to find out, just like Enrique was talking about earlier, when we're talking to our clients, is trying to find out what their end goal is, right? When they sell their property, what is their plan? Are they looking for downsize, right? Are they looking to buy out of state? Are they nearing retirement? Do they not want to get into real estate? I mean, these are all questions that, having the answers to these questions is going to dictate how you can help them, right? And how financial services will kind of guide them into, giving you the opportunity to get that listing. That's really important. So the other day, I don't know if you guys know, but we have an agent that's going to be joining Enrique's team right there with EXP with you guys. And we were there just helping the sister out with a 401k rollover because her money's volatile in the market, right? So just from that conversation, she wanted to know, what income she can get from this annuity that we're doing. And I was asking her what other income she had. And really quickly, she told me, well, I have this rental property in Modesto that I'm getting $1,000 a month in rent, right? And I asked, okay, well, how much do you owe on that property? She said, well, it's paid off, right? So I'm thinking, okay, well, what do you think that property's worth? And, she gave me a very conservative number. She said, about 500,000. So we looked it up and sure enough, it's about 500,000. And, my question to her was, has anyone ever showed you, what renting versus selling will do for you? And she, quickly she says, well, what does that mean? What do you mean by that? And I said, well, if we put your 500,000 in a different type of account, what that money would actually generate versus the rent you're receiving. And she's all, no, can you show that to me? And first I went into the 401k rollover that was losing money. And then we went back to the property and I showed her, hey, if we put this $500,000 to work for you, right? When we put it in a different account, how would you like to get, double the amount of rent that you're getting? And she said, I'd love that. And I said, well, let's try 3 times the amount, right? So I put that she was going to receive $36,000 a year in income, and her 500,000 in this account, what it did historically over the last 10 years, 350,000. And she's receiving $3,000 a month where she was only getting 1,000. She doesn't have to deal with the tenant. This lady's 72 years old. Last year, she had to put air conditioning in the house, right? That cost her, I don't know, $7,000, $8,000. So that dipped into her income. So showing clients, especially older clients that do not want to be landlords, what their money can do for them versus the rent they're receiving, or just asking the questions about their real estate and where their primary residence and what their goal is. The financial services is going to help you get that listing. It's going to help out that client financially in their retirement or depending on what their goal is. So it's huge. It's just asking those questions, getting us involved. So as Enrique is telling you that, they're partnered with our company, I'm partnered with every single one of you, right? You guys need to use me, right, for your appointments. And some of you have, and, for the ones that have, if you want to chime in and let the team know how those appointments went, I'm there to make you look good, right? I'm there to help you get a listing. We're both, we're a team that's going to, we're trying to help the client. I'm trying to help you. So, as a team, we'll help you get listings. We'll help your clients go further and make yourself look good. Your client will refer you more clients. And that's what it's about.
Yeah. And just to expand on that a bit. So that client came in, to do that insurance, the rollover. We didn't even know she had another property, right? And it was when anytime he sits down, he's doing an assessment of their finances and their assets and all that stuff. And that's how that got discovered, right? So by just us being partners with him, now he said, Enrique, hey, where are you? I'm like, I'm at lunch. He goes, well, she has a property she might want to sell. I was like, all right, I'll be back right now. So I came in, I did a listing presentation right there. And it's in Modesto. I had Andrea go to the property yesterday, took video, photos and everything. And so now I'm going to be meeting with the client to give her an assessment of what we need to do. So she's owned that property for a long time. The tenants have been in there for like 15 years. They're only paying $1,000 a month. Rent in that neighborhood goes for $2,500 a month. So she's losing a ton of money, right? She's 72 years old. She lives here. The property's in Modesto. She's like, it's just a no-brainer, right? And the house is paid off, and she has all this equity sitting there, and it's not really giving her a return on her investment, right? That $500,000 is going to make her way more money in a different vehicle than just sitting there, her having to manage this place that she doesn't know how to manage. Part of it was because her husband passed away, and he was the one who dealt with that. right? And so now it's a potential listing now, in Modesto. It's a smaller listing, 500,000, but it's like, it's going to help her out tremendously, right? And so by us just knowing what to look for, or even having these questions of like, hey, what are your long-term goals? What is your goal after you sell this property, right? Because the whole first half of this presentation was how to get them to sell. Now it's like, okay, you're going to sell. What are you going to do with the money, right? Do you understand your tax ramifications? So that's the other thing too here. Do you guys understand how capital gains work, right? So understanding capital gains, do you have a basic understanding of tax law, right? When you sell a property, you guys should educate yourself on what happens, how does taxes work, right? Because now when you can have these basic conversations, you don't have to be an expert, but when you can at least give them a basic idea, what does that do to your value proposition? Makes it go up, right? And so there's a website that you guys should save, Smart Asset, right? So you go to Smart Asset, you go on investing, and you go to capital gains calculator. And it's very simple. This is not a very thorough one. It's just to give you a really rough idea. So let's say, you meet with the seller who bought their house for $50,000 a long time ago, and that house is in Sunnyvale, and now it's worth $2 million, right? Some of these guys don't want to sell because they know they're going to have to pay a lot of taxes, right? They've owned it for more than 1 year. The house is in Sunnyvale. And their income is, I don't know, 200,000 a year. I'm not even going, right? Just and they're married, husband and wife. So very, very basic calculation. They would have to pay $660,000 in taxes, in capital gains taxes. Very, very basic, right? We're not going to go further than that because you're not a tax expert. So you don't want to say, hey, I'm a tax expert. You want to, get quoted, but you say, hey, we have this calculator that we use, right? To just give us an idea of where we stand. Of course, we're going to want you to talk to one of our professionals, but just on a very basic level, there's going to be a lot of taxes you're going to have to pay. Have you had that discussion with anybody of what to do with that, how to mitigate the taxes, how to defer some of that, what your tax ramifications are going to be, right? Has anybody gone down that path with you? No, probably not. Okay, let me put you in touch with my partner. Let me put you in touch with Ariocha, who's a financial planner, right? Who does that type of stuff, right? Let me put you in touch with my CPA, who can give us more clarity on what that amount's going to be. And let me show you some potential options where instead of you paying all of that to Uncle Sam, there's creative ways to make that money work for you instead of just giving that up to Uncle Sam. Now that changes the whole entire conversation, right? That changes the whole amount of value that you're bringing to the table that is going to differentiate you from any agent out there, right? Whether they choose to go with these products or not, that's not the point. Some will, some won't, right? But just by you having that conversation and elevating your sales presentation, you now look way different and a lot better than any other agent out there. Because 90% of agents aren't even talking about this or touching this stuff, right? And so it goes back to just you having a basic understanding of how taxes work, right? And being able to identify the opportunities. And what Ariocha's already done with several of us, at least 5 or 6 people already, is he's jumped on calls with the clients and kind of went through scenarios, right? And I think he met with one client for Rob. I think he met with the client I think he talked to one of your clients for Blanca. I think he talked to one of Maudi's clients. He's talked to one of my clients, right? Just giving them different ideas, different options that they have, right? Which now elevates our presentation. And the cool thing is that if you're affiliated with the company, then you can get paid if any of that stuff goes through. The great thing is Jason and I are already affiliated, right? So if anything comes about, we will figure out a way to compensate you guys, but it's not going to be as much as if you were to get your license and get affiliated, right? And that's a separate conversation. We're not going to go into that now, but I want you guys to know how to look for these opportunities. And at the end of the day, if you're doing that, is that going to help you win more listings? Even at the very minimum, even if you're not compensated on any of these other things, but will that help you win more listings by bringing more options to the table, right? Absolutely. Go ahead, Anita.
Hey, I just want to piggyback off that really quick. So just so you know, I love the opportunity in your office of having so many options at the fingertips of your realtors, right? And so I kind of wanted to plug this in there, just using, you know, as we continue to move into this largest wealth transfer in history. Granted, what happened today, but it's still the largest wealth transfer in history. Us as realtors are going to be so much more needed than before on the listing side. And what I'm finding as I'm sitting across from different sellers and actually leveraging my husband, right? Because we don't, like you said, we don't want to be the experts in this. It's we wear too many hats as realtors already. We already know, you know, everything that we need to do about taking a house and selling it, getting it on the market and getting it off the market as fast as possible with the most money possible in the client's hands. But what I kind of wanted to pinpoint is leveraging and being that connector for different resources, but more so today on the finance side is going to make you as a listing agent stand out, because I can't tell you how many times I'm sitting in front of a seller and I say, hey, I know your house is worth $3 million and you inherited it, or whatever the case is, you bought it for, you know, $200,000 in 1980. But I'm more concerned about you because I know the house is going to sell. I'm more concerned about you after the fact. Has anyone ever put you in front of a tax strategist to get you that number of how much capital gains tax you would pay after we sell the house? Because I'm going to be your agent from the beginning, during the transaction, and at the end. But I hear so many different horror stories from CPAs that they're sitting in front of their client, that the realtor put their $3 million home on the market and didn't tell them that they were going to pay $600K in capital gains tax after the fact. I want to make sure that you're protected. So can I get you in front of our tax strategist to make sure before we sign this listing agreement, or let's get the listing agreement signed, make sure all of our ducks are in order. So when we sell the house, you can net more money in your pocket than giving it to Uncle Sam, because you're more important to me after the sale than, you know, during the sale, getting the most money and then you having to pay that capital gains tax bill in the end. So I just kind of wanted to throw it out there, what's working for me, as I'm continuing to see more and more people that are fleeing California, right? They're putting up their houses for sale because they're, we can go into this in another conversation about the baby boomers and people moving and using their real estate sales for their retirement. But you're going to hear, if you don't know just a basic conversation on finance and tax, you're going to miss out, because real estate has now changed, where if you don't know what's happening in today's stock market, we're in Silicon Valley. So if you don't even know what's happening a little bit about the stock market and how to have a decent conversation about money and also how to avoid capital gains tax, you're going to lose out on a listing, because somebody else is going to come in there with that basic education and use leverage and connect them with the right person. And that seller is going to be so grateful that that information came across so valuable that they're going to end up listing that house with that realtor. So I just wanted to point it out there of how important it is to be a connector, because there's more people, more sellers that are going to need our help, not just now. I mean, I was just showing homes right now, and it sounds like, in the $5 million range, and it sounds like people would just want to sell because they're scared. They're scared. They want to get out. And I was showing, this home, the $5 million home, to a buyer that basically has all his money in stock market, but he knows that his money is going to be better off in real estate than in the stock market right now. And so all of this, just to say, I can carry a basic conversation. I could say, hey, you know what? When we do cash out from your stock or your RSU or your GSU, and we put this down payment into your house, has anyone talked to you about that capital gains tax and how to avoid that? And so just don't go into anything outside of that. Just be the connector. Say, I know the guy that can help you. I know the person that can get you the education. I work with the team. I have the resources. Everyone is on our side to make sure that you, as the seller, as the buyer, is taken care of. And I can make sure that us moving forward in this real estate transaction, you have the most information to make the more informative decision for yourself. And so I just wanted to put that out there, my 2 cents.
Good stuff.
But
Good stuff.
use my husband, because he will get you more listings. That's my time.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Anita. Thanks for
You're
sharing that.
You're welcome.
One thing to take away too, guys, is, do you hear the level of confidence and conviction in Anita's voice when she speaks? Right? Why? Because she's educated herself on this, right? Because she's out there talking to people, and that confidence that you convey in the conversation, that's key as well, right? Like, if you don't know this stuff, you're not going to be confident. If you're not showing up to training, you're not learning it, you're not going to be confident when you're out there talking. But if you can learn how to have these basic conversations and have a really confident conversation, people are going to want to work with you because they believe that you believe what you're saying, right? That's conviction. Blanca, you had something.
And you schedule these appointments with these professionals. Be on the appointment, be on the Zoom, because that's going to be your opportunity to learn and hear all the options. And again, we're not the experts, but it adds a little bit more tools in your tool belt to have these conversations, or to at least say, hey, I have someone that's very knowledgeable in this. Let's meet.
Exactly, right? And you get to learn by watching, right? Learn by watching.
They're very powerful, and there's so much available that we don't even know about.
Yep. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap up today. That's concluding basically the presentation here. A lot of these other slides, we touched on them. But here's my last one. Yeah. I think it's just to reiterate, right? At the end of the day, it's just understanding. I know we don't need to share it. It's just understanding what to look for, right? The whole point of today, guys, was to, hopefully open your eyes to look for these other opportunities, right? Investment opportunities to help your sellers with what happens after they sell the property. What are they doing with those finances? How to be the connector, like Anita was saying, right? Those are all the things that I want you guys to leave with. I don't expect you to be an expert today, but you now have awareness that there are these things out there, right? And so since you guys are out in the field, out in the trenches, talking to clients on a daily basis, you need to be able to identify the opportunities and know who to come to so we can see if that's something that's going to work out, right? And so bring us the opportunities. We'll help you. We'll train you. Every situation is different. You're going to learn from each one. And just get involved, guys. Get involved and watch your business go to the next level, right? So that's all I got for you guys today. Thanks for showing up. Let's clap it up.